Before and after using our Aniline Renew leather dye repair kit in the color Maroon B, we hope you enjoy the leather repair kit video.
Okay, so here we have, believe it or not, a really nice couch. It's an aniline leather, and as you can see, the original color in here, and of course there's fading and there's wear on the armrests, and of course the seat cushions have definitely seen better days, as you can see here. We're actually going to do a half and half. We're going to do a before and we're going to do an after. That's why we've put a line down the middle of this couch, and we'll just show you up close here. You can see, the amount of, fading and wear. This is pretty typical of aniline leathers. This one's a little bit more of an exception here. Who knows what could have happened to the hide way back when with the animal. Could have had a skin condition or something like that. Now you're seeing it later after the skins are really worn and cracked. It's just sort of micro abrasive wear, as you can see here. When we put our dyes on there, it's going to do a really nice job. You of course don't need a filler or anything for that. Here you can see more of the original color. But we're going to do a half and half. We're going to do, this is going to be the before, this is going to be the after. Pretty much, the same type of condition, the same type of cracking, the same type of wear. And also here on the armrest rail. Okay, you can see the original color. And of course the back of the couches always look fantastic. As you can see here, this is the original color here. Okay, it's unfaded. Because they had it right up against the wall and you couldn't, didn't get any sunlight, so that's how you can basically see what the original color was. So we're going to basically put the camera on the tripod, and we're going to do this whole side, and we'll go from there. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we're back. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to refinish this half of the couch, leaving that half alone, and the way we're going to do that is with our large Aniline Renew leather dye repair kit. It's specifically designed for aniline and antique leathers, and this color is what's called a Maroon B. Okay, this is the original color up here. Of course this is a little bit faded. If you look at the back of the couch, that'll be the most accurate representation of the color. So of course you get the 8-ounce bottle of the Aniline Renew. It's going to do this whole couch. You're going to get the leather cleaning and dusting cloth. You're going to get the foam sponge applicators. You're going to get a one-time 4-ounce cleaner. You're going to get a lock top cap for on top of the dye here, and you're going to get rubber gloves, sandpaper, full instructions, and of course this is a packing slip what you're getting in the kit. So this is the leather dye repair kit with this sort of micro abrasive wear. You don't need a filler, you don't need anything like that. What you do need to do is first clean your couch. So you would of course clean it. This is our larger 22-ounce leather cleaner, okay? With this type of wear, it will be porous. So that means the leather will be porous. If you were to spray the cleaner on here, this would soak it up like a sponge. So what we would recommend is not to waste cleaner. You wouldn't sit here and spray the whole couch down. You would actually get your leather cleaning and dusting cloth, and you would spray the cleaner on the cloth, okay? And then you would wipe and clean up your leather, okay? That's all you need to do. Then you let it fully dry. You make sure this is fully dry. And then you're going to apply a dye product. Now the other common issue too is in the handrails and of course in the headrest areas. Sometimes you get people, they have hair gels, hair products, they have greasy hair, they have oil and acids, they have sweat, and it'll build up in this area, okay? The other thing is too is a lot of people, what they do is, they put creams, cleaners, and waxes on their couch, which actually cause more damage. So what happens is you apply a conditioner on here or a wax or a cream, and it looks all nice and glistening and special and new, but then of course it'll dry out and it'll make the surface sticky and it'll attract more dirt, and that's when you get cracking and stuff like that. A leather surface should not be left sticky or waxy. That's when problems arise. So that being said, if you have any oily areas on the handrail, or if you have oily areas on the headrest, the cleaner will clean them up into a certain point. You know, maybe 50, 60, 70%, it'll remove some of that. But we can't make our cleaner too strong, or else it's going to strip the finish off a brand new couch. So we only make it strong enough where it's actually going to go in, do the job of cleaning, you know, soil from the leather without damaging the finish. So if you have oils or waxes on the couch and you can feel them, what you want to do is get yourself some rubbing alcohol. You can buy it at any drugstore or anything like that. You can either get 70 to 99% rubbing alcohol or isopropyl alcohol. Get yourself a, you know, a t-shirt wiper or something like that. Put some of that on there and just sort of gently wipe that area down. Continue to wipe that area down and let it dry until, you know, it gets really really nice and dry. Okay, if you have oil that's in the back of the headrest area, when you dry it, when you clean it with the rubbing alcohol, the oils may wick back up to the surface because this is a super saturated panel with oil. So you're going to surface clean it, it's going to dry, the oils are going to wick back up to the surface. You're going to clean it again, the oils are going to wick back up to the surface. You may have to clean it 3 times with the rubbing alcohol. But basically what you want to do is you want to feel it nice and clean and dry. So that being said, this has already been cleaned. We've wiped it down with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, you know, just to make sure that, you know, the creams and cleaners that were applied to this couch are sort of, you know, cleaned up. And now we're going to apply a dye product. So again, this is our Aniline Leather Renew in a Maroon B. We'll be back and we're going to start applying them and you're going to see the difference. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we got our dye here. We're going to shake it up. Make sure you shake it very well. Might want to shake it up to a minute or something like that because the dyes can separate, and sometimes to get the most accurate color, you know, there's a glass bead inside. You really want to shake it up. So I don't know what we're going to do here. We're going to wipe on a thin coat, or actually with this type of damage and this wear, you actually want to apply a little bit more product in here so it soaks down into the dermis or into the suede or into the leather, because this is the epidermal layer being broken down and being worn off, which is the skin surface of the leather. Once you start to remove that first layer, now you're into the dermis or into the suede, okay? So basically what we're going to do is, you know, there's many things you can do. You can apply it to the sponge, like this, okay? And you can basically just wipe it in. So you're getting really good penetration, okay? If you had a lot of, you know, if you really had a lot of cracking, or if see, this leather actually has some pretty good strength left in it. But if this was really tattered, like, you know, it was like Kleenex or toilet paper where there's no strength left in it. I mean, we've seen a lot of things. You can actually apply the dye straight onto the surface and wipe the dyes in just with your hand. You're getting maximum penetration now of the dyes. Now, of course, you're going to be using a little bit more product if you do it this way, but what's happening is you're really applying a finish that's going to be so much more durable, because you're actually forcing the dyes down inside the leather. And you can see the difference between here, it's just sort of laying on the surface, whereas here it almost looks like brand new leather again. So with this type of, you know, damage, if you want to lay the dyes in thick, you're just going to have that much more wearability. It's really going to last a long time rather than just putting a thin coat onto the surface. So maybe we'll do it both ways. You know, you can do it both ways. The best way to do it in this case is probably to rub the dyes in. Okay? See, the dyes are soaking down in there and they're penetrating, and it's already looking like brand new leather. Whereas here it's looking a little bit deficient. It looks like it probably needs at least another coat or two. Whereas here, this almost looks perfect already. So maybe we'll just do it this way, you know? Maybe we'll just do it this way. So if you do it this way, you just got to watch out a little bit and have a little bit more control with it, because when you're applying it to the sponge, you have the most maximum control. But when you're doing it this way, sometimes you have to make sure that you have some newspapers down or something like that, because this can be potentially a little bit more messy. So what we'll do is we'll do this cushion like this, and we'll do the other cushion with the sponge, and you'll see. But at the end of the day, the couch is going to look like brand spanking new again. So Here we go, we're just sort of feathering it out a little bit here. Put a little bit on the sponge. Just sort of get that fine sort of line down here. Okay, so now we're going to move over to the other side. And we're going to apply a little bit more dye onto the sponge there. We're just going to wipe it in. So, you know, you're pressing down a little bit with the sponge. This is loaded up with dye. And of course, all that worn leather is soaking that dye right up. So, I don't know, it's 6 to 1, half a dozen to another type of thing. I guess if you were to use your hand over here, you know, you're not forcing the sponge so much, so your sponge is going to last a lot longer. If you apply a lot of pressure onto these sponges, you know, eventually they will break down. But again, you know, you have more control. Nothing's dripping. You know, it's on a sponge, which is kind of nice too. So if you're in an area where you don't want to make a mess, it might be better to use a sponge. If you have a lot of micro abrasive wear, like these cushions have, you might want to do a little bit of finger paint. It's no big deal. As long as the dye gets on there and as long as it sinks down into the wear and as long as it dries and cures, you're going to have a good day. So, I don't know if we're going to speed the film up and do this quickly or if you're just going to hang along and just watch me do this whole thing. Okay. Guess it really doesn't take all that long. And you can see the application. And also here too. This is how it's going to be when you get it home. But we always recommend for our customers is just do one small area. You know, like if you just have a little area like this, apply the dyes to the one area, just like that. You're going to dry it with a hair dryer and you're going to be like, holy wow. That looks like a brand new area on my couch and it feels fantastic and protected and everything else because the leather, the Aniline Renew dyes have actually a built-in sealer. You don't have to put a secondary topical sealer if you don't want to. This has a built-in sealer, so when you dry that, it's done, okay? And then once people see the area and they see the performance and they feel it and they touch it and they know the performance of the product, then they go ahead and do the rest of the couch. That's the best way to approach it. You know, you can put your toe in the pool before you jump in, or you can just jump in. And those people that jump in, sometimes they're sorry for doing that. But with our products, you're not going to be sorry because they work very well. What you see on the video is pretty much what you get. You know, we don't have any, we like to have the lighting where you can just sort of see everything. We don't like to do trickery or any sort of shadowing or anything like that. You can do a lot of monkey business with lighting and different things like that, but we're not into that, you know. We're primarily leather refinishing specialists. That's what we do. And of course, we've designed our own products to be applied by the consumer by hand that just do a fantastic job. And you'll find that out when you order your kit, that it will do a very nice job. So we're just putting on the first coat here. Up here where there's, you know, not very much damage, it's not going to suck a lot of the dyes in, it's just going to lay topically. And basically all you're going to do is just sort of, you know, put a couple coats on and dab them in, and it's already going to look fantastic. Alright, so It's already looking probably pretty good from your end over there. We're just going to put one more coat over here. We're going to check it. And basically what we're checking for is it's not sticky, okay? It's almost, I mean, it's not totally dried. It won't be totally dried till overnight because below this it's wet. But you know, you can put another coat on at this point. As long as the first part of the finish is dry to the touch, you can actually put on another coat. You know, you're just going really gentle with the sponge now. Now you're sort of laying on sort of another thin coat, especially onto this surface here where you don't really need very much dye. It's not going to really soak in. And here, you know, you can just put a really thin coat on, just with the weight of my fingers. Just applying the dye like this. Circular motions or something like that, that's fine. You know, let me get right down here. Can we, you guys seeing that on the film? I guess so, yep. Okay. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now we're going to move over to the other side. Okay. Going to do the front down here. It's all scratched up and faded. And right down here at the bottom. I don't think you can see that. Well, you might be able to, can you? Yes, you can. Okay. So. Okay, see how we're just wiping that on? And then we're going to do the front over here. And all those little scratches that you saw are all going to be filled in. And if you think this looks good with one coat, wait till you see it with two coats. So now you can see, you know, we have the heat register down here. We got, you know, we're about 75 degrees in the shop here today. And it's a nice temperature for the dyes to dry and to cure. So again, they're not going to be fully cured for a while because we're just putting on just a very, very thin coating. We're using just the weight of our hands just to apply the dyes topically. But they're not going to create a real protective membrane until they're totally dry and totally cure overnight. So, just going to apply just another thin coat here. If you want to put the dyes on thicker, you can maybe see here, it's hard to say, that it looks a little bit like it needs more dye. Because red too is a tricky kind of color. Reds and greens are, the characteristics of reds and greens are translucent, so you can use a little bit more product on a red or a green coat. And each coat that you put on it will look better and better, richer and richer. Okay, so I think we're done for now. We'll show you how much of the bottle we've used so far. I think it's about not very much at all. But like I said, this 8-ounce bottle will do the whole couch. It'll look fantastic afterwards. So what we're going to do is we're going to let this dry and we'll be back. Okay, so we're back the next day, and as you can see, the color is a little bit darker and richer because it's dried and cured. And you know, these panels all sort of match up. Now this one here, as you can see, it's a little bit darker, it's a little bit richer because obviously we've put more product on there. Okay, so really if you look at this, we don't really even need any more coats here. Over here now you can see that the finish is a little bit lighter, and the only advantage, see, the thing is you have to say to yourself, what type of work do I have on my couch? And as you can see over here, I mean, you got to deal with this. This is really worn, and so you can lay the dyes in thicker, okay, to correct all that wear, or you can lay the dyes topically over here, and of course the skins will only absorb the amount of dyes that they're given, rather than here we were pushing them in, forcing them down. So here we have the option of creating a modeled look. Like, let's say the couch did have a modeled look to it. you know, where there's high and low areas of color, deeper and lighter and stuff like that, then we could actually work with this, because now see how we have a little bit of a lighter hue to it? We could get the dyes on a sponge and we could dab in a mottled look. So if you had a couch with a mottled look, it might be better to take care of the wear like this, because this way you could recreate the mottled look. But the original finish of this aniline was more of a straight color. So that being the case, we would probably recommend wiping them in with your hand. The only thing with this is now you can't really recreate a mottled look because it's one uniform, one straight shade, because you've already applied probably about 3 or 4 coats of dye by wiping them in. By applying the dyes on here and wiping them in, you probably are effectively applying 3 coats like that over here. Okay? So what we're going to do is here, okay, it's nice and smooth as you can hear, but here it's a little bit rough. And the reason why that is this surface here is a napped surface because it's worn. So when we apply the dyes, any of those little pieces of nap that are sticking up will stay there and cause it to be a little bit rough rather than smooth. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our sandpaper and we're going to lightly sand this area down just so it's nice and smooth, and then we're going to reapply 1 coat of dye, and then that's pretty much going to be finished. So we'll be back. Okay, so we're back. So now we're going to take our sandpaper, which is in your kit, and you're going to take a piece out just like that. And basically what you're going to do is you can just pull it towards you like this, as simple as that, and you can feel it. Or you can start to, you know, go in circular motions if you want, just like this. And I'm not applying a lot of pressure, I'm just using the weight of my fingers onto the surface. If you aggressively sand it down, you're just basically going backwards in your work process. You don't want to do that. You just want to lightly sand it down. So all the hills on here, we're actually sanding them down, and you can see there's a lighter color because we're actually removing the dye on those little pieces of nap that have, of course, been stuck up instead of being pushed down or glued down with the dyes. So that's okay, that's the way it's supposed to be. Anything rough, if you feel anything rough on the surface, even over top of your stitching or whatever like that, you just want to gently wipe it down with the sandpaper, just like this. Okay, and you can get yourself a cloth, or you can get a dry dusting cloth, and you can just wipe down your work. Okay, a little bit of dust will come off, that's normal. Okay, and now when you feel it's nice and smooth, and it's even going to be smoother when we apply a new coat of dye on here. It's going to feel just like that. So we're going to, what we're going to do, yeah, this is a little bit rough too. So we're going to sand this down and maybe all the other spots, and then we'll be back to apply the dyes. Okay, so we're back. What we've done is we've sanded this whole area down. As you can see, it looks a little bit lighter on the hills, and in the valleys it's darker. So what we've done is we basically feel the leather to see where it's rough. Use the sandpaper, lightly sand it down. These were extremely rough and worn, as you can see. So we've just lightly sanded them down, and now they're beautifully nice and soft. So now what we're going to do is reapply our Aniline Renew leather dyes. Okay. One more thing. This is the same sponge we were using yesterday. As you can see, it's not coming off on my hands. It's totally dry. It's totally pure. The sponge is not stiff. It bends and flexes. That's what's special about our dyes. They bend and flex at the same rate as leather. If you were to use just house paint or something like that, this would be as stiff as, I mean, it would just be as stiff as a board. But this, as you can see, it has a lot of elasticity. Feels great, and it's not coming off on my fingers or anything like that. Even if I press hard, it's not coming off on my fingers. So when people say, is it going to come off on my clothes? Well, No, it's not going to come off on your clothes. If it does come off on your clothes, it's for a reason. Maybe it's because the dyes haven't dried and cured properly yet, or something like that. Or let's say you had a really greasy area or something like that, and you apply the dyes over the greasy area, and the grease sort of is pushing our dyes off, and they won't really come off on your clothes. What they could possibly do is maybe wear off a little bit prematurely, but that's about it. So anyways, there's our sponge. We can reuse it. You can wash it out with water, warm water the night before or something, but we didn't do that, so we're just going to reuse it. Basically, you know, put your gloves on. It saves from scrubbing your hands down later. And what we're going to do, of course, is shake our bottle of dye up. Give it a good shake. And we're going to apply it to the sponge, and see how that dye is just sitting on there? See how it's just sitting on there, it's not absorbing? That's because when you apply the dyes, they create a protective membrane when they're totally dry and cured. Okay, when they're totally dry and cured, they create a protective membrane, so all other dyes will lay upon the surface, and you can see this even on a sponge. Okay, so now we actually have to you know, push it down into the sponge. Now the sponge will accept the dyes, okay? Just like a new sponge. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go over here, and this doesn't really need any dye because it's a really nice color. It looks like new leather, but what we want to do is we want to correct the areas where we've sanded. And the way you would do that is just basically by wiping them in, wiping the dye in. It doesn't even really take much. Doesn't take much at all. Okay. Then we're going to come over here. And then we're going to apply the dyes again here. Just a thin coat. Very easy to work with again. Okay. Here we sanded it down a little bit, but it didn't really even need it. There was just maybe there was a couple of cat scratches here or something like that. You can just sand it down a little bit, and now we're going to put another coat on here. And each coat again you put on will look richer and richer, deeper and deeper. But ultimately, when you're doing work like this, the worst areas of the couch first, like these cushions, you want to get them pretty much as good as you can get them, like with regards to newness, and then blend it into the rest of the couch. These cushions are easy. So I always do the hard work first and then blend it into the easy stuff. You don't want to start making easy areas of the couch look totally perfect and then be limited to the areas on the couch that are really worn and faded, and let's say you could only get them like 80% perfect or something like that, then you'd see a difference. So I always do the worst areas first and then blend the rest into the rest of the couch. Okay? So we're just going to put one more coat on here because I think we might have sanded it down, maybe a little bit. We might have sanded it down a little bit. But you're not going to see the dye coming off because there's no little pieces of nap sticking up on this leather to sand down. So really, when you start sanding this down, you're not going to see any sort of worn areas like you did on these cushions. Okay. And if you want to put the dyes on a little bit heavier, we always recommend dabbing them on. Something like this here, it's going to need still a little bit more dye because, like I said, when we apply the dyes and push them down in, it's almost like three or four coats of dye by applying it with the sponge. The only thing is you wouldn't want to wipe them into a couch that's not worn, because then you'd be sort of wasting product and you'd have less control because you'd be wiping around these dyes that are going all over the place. The only reason we did that here is because of the amount of wear. If you have a lot of wear, or if you want to strengthen the leather and it's worn, it's better probably in the long run to apply the dyes and push them in with the glove. The only disadvantage to that is, like we said earlier in the video, you can't recreate the model effect. So here, if you want to just go like this, see, like this, I could recreate a modeled effect. You would see darker patches and darker areas in here. Okay? If this couch did have a modeled effect, you could just sort of do this. See, inconsistently. And you could recreate a modeled effect, okay, when that dries. But we're not looking to do that here because this couch was more of one straight color, so we're going to go back to the one straight color. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Do the front here a little bit more. We'll go over to this cushion. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I would like to put one more thin coat on this. Again, we have very high lighting in here to show you everything, but I mean, under normal lighting conditions in your home, you wouldn't even be able to see this. You wouldn't even be able to see any of that, like any of the sanding marks or something like that. You could probably get rid of with one coat. I'm putting 2 or 3 on here because you can kind of see with these lights a little bit more. Okay, so that all looks good. What we're going to do now is I think we're just going to let it dry, and then we're going to show you the before and the after. So again, this is the Aniline Renew. It has a built-in sealer. When this is totally dry and cured, it's ready to go. You can sit on it, you can do whatever the heck you want to. Of course we always recommend not to jump on it or put animals on it. This isn't a bulletproof finish, you know what I mean? Like if you put an animal on here and he's 30 or 40 pounds and he's jumping up and down, yeah, it's probably going to scratch after a while. Because that's not considered normal use. But if you're just sitting down here with normal clothes and everything, it's going to last for years and years and years. And of course, I'll get to our future care and maintenance later, to take care of this finish. Very, very, very easy. But for now, we're just going to let this dry up and we'll be back. Okay, so we're back. This is all dried up, cured. It looks fantastic, as of course as you can see, and of course here, it's not rough anymore. It's like brand spanking new leather. Even this side, and here. So, and you can see the flexibility of our dyes. And I'm pushing down all the way down, and it's of course not coming off on my hand because it's not going to. These are professional grade leather refinishing dyes that do a fantastic job. Okay, the only other thing that we could suggest is to take care of this finish. We would recommend our leather cleaning and protection kit. So what you would do is for future care and maintenance, you don't want to put any sort of creams or conditioners or waxes or anything on that. This is a fully protected finish. You basically want to get your leather cleaner, you want to spray it on the cleaning and dusting cloth, and you just want to sort of wet dust your furniture every 3 to 4 weeks. That's all you need to do, okay? Now every, let's say 8 to 12 months, through sitting on this with your jeans or through abrasion and anything, you will start to wear down the protective top coat to a certain degree. If you take your leather protector and you spray it on a sponge and you wipe down your couch with a new protective top coat every 8 to 12 months, it's going to be looking like this for a long time. So as you can see here, over there, that was the before. This is the after. It's just a beautiful, absolutely, you know, you pretty much can't get better than this. I mean, you can. We can do a professional service that's probably going to look better than this. But this is something that you can do yourself in your own home with our products. And just to give it a little bit more of a dramatic effect, we're going to remove that tape. So, here we go. Let's remove the tape, if I can. And we'll just go slow because the tape is actually going to remove some of the worn finish that you see here, okay? But of course you can fix that up easily with our dies. So the tape did remove some of the worn finish, as you can see. Not advisable to put tape on your couch, but of course with something like this, it's just so worn and a lot of this dry finish will come off from tape. But as you can see there, let's back up a little bit here for you. There is the before and the after right there. Fantastic job. You can find this and many more products at leathertouchupdye.com. Okay, and one more thing, because I think it's pretty important, is coverage. All leather couches, I mean, you'll get certain coverages out of our product. Of course, if your leather doesn't have very much wear, and if it doesn't have very much fading, of course you're only going to need a coat or two for it to look like brand new again. Thus, you're going to get very good coverage out of the bottle. If you have a lot of wear and a lot of fading, you're going to have to put 3 or 4 or 5 coats on it, and of course you're going to use more of the bottle. Now, we refinished this with our large Aniline Renew kit, and the bottle was 8 ounces. Now, I'm just going to take the bottle, because it's been sitting on a table for a while. Maybe you can pick this up, hopefully. You can see, let's see if I can get down here, right there, okay? That's the level of the bottle. I don't know if you can see that. Hopefully you can. Right there, so we've used from the top all the way to here, which is, we still have more than half, okay? And again, the back of the couch really isn't going to need that much dye because it's not faded at all. So for this whole area and everything, and putting the coats of dye down, doing basically half the couch, we've used this much dye. So you can see the amount of coverage that you get out of the bottle, okay? I thought that was an important thing for the customers. They always ask, you know, how much does this cover? If you're talking about a couch, a love seat, and a chair that's sort of moderately faded or hardly faded at all, you can do a couch, love seat, and a chair with this bottle if it only needs a coat or two. But again, if it's really faded and really worn, you're going to want to put the dyes in a little bit heavier, and of course you won't get as much coverage out of the bottle, but this is what you're left with. You're left with a beautiful finish that looks like brand new leather, and it's also going to last.
If you have enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, or share with your friends. To order this and many other fine leather products, go to leathertouchupdye.com.